You're in the mood to watch a movie and you happen to be a music fan. So what do? Well, you watch a great music documentary. That's what you do. But with so many great music documentaries out there, where does someone start? Well, I'm here to help. Hi, my name is Paul Crayson. You're watching Music Mentions. And today, I'm going to dive into 5 fantastic music documentaries. The criteria that I use to select these films are, number one, they must concentrate on documentary material and not just be concert movies. Number two, they have to be able to be enjoyed by music fans and non-music fans alike. And that means that you don't necessarily need to know anything about the bands or the artists to thoroughly enjoy the films. Number three, they have to have replay value. And this means that every time that you watch the film, you're able to see a little something new, something that you didn't notice before that enriches the overall experience of the film. Note that these 5 are not in any particular order. Now, without further ado, let's dive into number 1. Number 1, I Am Trying to Break Your Heart. This is a black and white documentary about the band Wilco. It was directed by first-time director Sam Jones, who was known as a photographer at the time. It was released in 2002, and it covers the band's 4th studio album, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which many fans and music critics alike consider to be Wilco's masterpiece. It provides a close and unflinching look at the reality of making music in a corporate world. As the recording of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot came to a close, their record label Reprise unceremoniously dropped them. They said it was due to underwhelming sales of their previous albums, and also they just didn't know what to make of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. The film captures the breakdown of the relationship between Jeff Tweedy, who is Wilco's chief songwriter and singer, and multi-instrumentalist Jay Bennett. It also gives you some insights into Jeff Tweedy's bouts with migraines, which he was suffering with at the time. The film was recorded in black and white, which kind of gives the film a stylistic and almost a mysterious type of an element. The film talks about taking chances with a new sound, corporate greed, and really, what does success mean in the music industry? The film holds a critic's approval rating of 88% and an audience approval rating of 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. For me, the scenes that feature the relationship between Jeff Tweedy and Jay Bennett are really the most interesting in the movie. It's really an interesting dynamic to see these 2 great musicians battle it out in the studio and how they speak to each other and how they deal with each other. Wilco is one of my favorite bands. I've seen Wilco 12 times over the years. The first time that I saw them was in 2003 when they were a warm-up band for REM at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado. Here's a quote from the film by Jeff Tweedy. "None of us can say, 'This is what I do, and I'm going to keep doing this,' because you can't. The work has to say, 'I want to be this.' That's the only way you can make good stuff." This quote reflects Jeff's perspective on the creative process and the idea that true artistry involves letting the work evolve and dictate its own direction instead of rigidly adhering to some preconceived notions. It underscores the band's dedication to their craft and to Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Number 2. Dig. Dig is a 2004 documentary created by Andy Timiner. It explores the intersection of art and commerce through the lens of 2 legendary bands, the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jonestown Massacre. The film focuses on the evolving careers of the band's 2 front men. For the Dandy Warhols, that would be Courtney Taylor Taylor, and for the Brian Jonestown Massacre, that would be Anton Newcomb. The Dandy Warhols sign on with a major record label and have a radio hit, whereas San Francisco's Brian Jonestown Massacre seemingly go out of their way to kind of undermine their own career. They impede their rise to fame with increasingly bizarre behavior, including fistfights on stage. The film really captures the essence of 90s rock and roll with its garage rock, psychedelia, and competitive drive. And this frenemy relationship between Taylor and Newcomb, it's almost like a reality TV element in the movie. It's really fascinating to watch. The film really embraces both the wonderful and the terrible aspects of rock and roll. That alone makes this one of the all-time great music movies. The documentary showcases the vain, petty, even childish behavior of some of the band members who obviously have heard about rocker antics in the past and seek to emulate them. There's also this fierce competitiveness and a ferocious drive for success that many bands in the 90s pretended not to have because they didn't want to seem to be too commercial. There are plenty of scenes in this film that will have your jaw dropping, your head shaking, or just laughing. There's this fly on the wall cinema verite style to the film that really aligns with the chaos of the bands and everything that's going on screen. Here's a quote from the movie by Anton Newcomb, the leader of the Brian Jonestown Massacre. "You fucking broke my sitar, motherfucker." You need to watch the film to understand the context of this quote in the scene. Just too funny. Number 3, Lemmy. Lemmy is a 2010 documentary about the English rocker Ian Lemmy Kilmister. He was the founder, bassist, and vocalist for the hard rock band Motorhead. The film was directed and produced by Greg Oliver and Wes Orshowski. This documentary includes a lot of interviews with friends, peers, admirers of Lemmy, including Slash, Duff McKagan, Ozzy Osbourne, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Robert Trujillo, Kirk Hammett, Scott Ian, Peter Hook, and Marky Ramone. The filmmakers were really able to capture some candid moments between Lemmy and Dave Grohl and Billy Bob Thornton in bars and recording studios. The film reveals that Lemmy spent much of his time either on the road touring with Motorhead or at the Rainbow Bar and Grill in Los Angeles. It also touches upon Lemmy's extensive World War II memorabilia collection, as well as his hobby of playing gambling machines. You get a real great sense of Lemmy's ride-or-die attitude out of this film, and you see why he was such an interesting and unique musician, so well respected amongst his peers. In an industry where it's often hard to see the real person behind the persona, Lemmy is a breath of fresh air, unpretentious, real, and just Lemmy. Here's a quote from the film by Dave Grohl. "More than any other rock musician, Lemmy is the baddest motherfucker in the world. Word." Number 4, Some Kind of Monster. Some Kind of Monster is a 2004 documentary about the great band Metallica. The film follows the band from 2001 to 2003 while they record their new album, Saint Anger. Frontman James Hetfield goes to rehab for his alcoholism. Jason Newsted, the band's bassist, leaves the band, and the band hires a new bassist, Robert Trujillo, from Suicidal Tendencies. In April 2001, Metallica was at a real crossroads in their career. The relations between the band members really were at an all-time low. The film shows how they were working with performance enhancement coach Phil Tao. Phil Tao was brought in to help the band sort through their tensions. Jason Newsted says that Hetfield wouldn't let him work on a side project, a band called Echo Brain. Jason also called the band's decision to work with a therapist really fucking lame and weak. Metallica begins to work on their new album in an empty barracks at the Presidio in San Francisco. They use these barracks as the recording studio, and they enlist Bob Rock, their producer, to help them record this next album. Bob Rock also ends up playing bass on those recordings. The recording of this album is different from their prior albums because they decide to record these albums from scratch in the studio. And they also enlist Bob Rock to help with the lyrics and the music. So it was really kind of a band-wide collaboration that they'd never done before in a similar fashion. The documentary is a really intimate portrait of a band working through interpersonal crisis. This crisis had been bubbling under the surface well before the cameras started rolling. The filmmakers shot about 1,200 hours of footage, both day and night, over the course of a year to make this documentary. I have to give kudos to Metallica for having the balls to film and to release this movie. There's a lot of vulnerability here, and it's very rare for rock stars and bands to allow their audience to look under the covers and see both the good and the bad. So shout out to Metallica for participating in this film. So it's kind of telling that the album that was being recorded during this movie was Saint Anger, which I think is a huge steaming pile of shit. The movie certainly is not a huge stinking pile of shit, but the album is. And Lulu too, if you remember that one. Here's a quote from the movie by Lars Ulrich. The biggest cliche of all is, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But sometimes, the cliche is the truth. This quote underscores the idea that the process of self-discovery and personal growth, even amid challenges and conflict, is as important as the ultimate destination of the achievement itself. And we've come to number 5, Supersonic. Supersonic covers the rise of the band Oasis from their humble beginnings in Manchester to their legendary performances at Nebworth in 1996. The film features a lot of off-screen interviews with band members, their family, collaborators, and friends. There's a lot of archival footage of concerts, backstage moments, and interviews in this film. The film also explores the complex and often turbulent relationship of the Gallagher brothers, Liam and Noel. They were the driving force and main source of conflict within the band. The film also reveals how Liam and Noel's father, who is an abusive alcoholic, left the family when they were young. The film shows how Liam formed Oasis in 1991 with his friends Paul Bonehead Arthurs, Paul Guigsy McGuigan, and Tony Carroll. Oasis was a band that was inspired primarily by the Beatles, Stone Roses, and the Smiths. Noel, who was a roadie for the band in Spiral Carpets at the time, joined Oasis as the main songwriter and guitarist. However, he agreed to join the band on the condition that he would have complete control over the music and the direction of the band. The film chronicles the band's rapid ascent to success and fame after being signed by Alan McGee of Creation Records back in 1993. Their debut album, Definitely Maybe, became the fastest-selling debut album in British history at the time. Their second album, What's the Story, Morning Glory, catapulted them into international stardom and fame with songs such as Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, and Champagne Supernova. The film ends with the band's historic performances at Nebworth in August of 1996, where 250,000 people saw them perform over 2 nights. It was one of the largest concerts ever held in Britain and a real defining moment for Oasis. Out of all of the movies on this list, I have to say that Supersonic is my favorite. I've watched this movie many times. I'm a massive Oasis fan, and this film is infinitely entertaining with so many funny moments and insights into the band, it never gets old. Here's a quote from the film by Noel Gallagher. "The reason why no other band in the 90s ever took us on or dared say anything to us was, we're too fucking good." This quote reflects Noel Gallagher's self-assured and confident attitude about Oasis's music and their place in the music scene during that era. It exemplifies the band's belief in their own talent and their impact on the 90s music landscape. So those are just 5 great music documentaries that I would recommend. They're certainly worth your time. Like I mentioned, you don't have to be a fan of the bands or the artists on this list. It doesn't matter at all. You will enjoy these films as films without knowing anything about these bands or their music. However, if you're a music fan and you have seen some of these or maybe all of these films, let me know in the comments which ones are your favorites. Also, I would love to hear from you guys about any music documentaries that you really love. Although I've seen more music documentaries than I can remember, I'm always on the lookout for anything worthwhile. I really appreciate you guys watching me and my channel. If you like what you see, you want to see more, please support the channel by subscribing or giving me a like. My name is Paul Crayson, and until next time, see ya.